So let's say if you want to productionize your service, in that case, these are the some of the criteria which you should consider where your service should be highly available. If you have planning to support multiple region customers, then it should be available in multiple regions. It should be scalable. You should be able to automatically roll out the deployments and logging, monitoring. All those things will should be integrated with that. So with all these things in mind, uh, we started actually exploring on Kubernetes when we initially moved to Kubernetes, and we started exploring. We started looking at the different resources available on Kubernetes. We looked at the deployments, config secrets, and everything. We came up with our initial architecture where what all services we want to create, what will be the deployment and all. But just creating the YAMLs of those deployment won't cut it, because let's say if you want to deploy on multiple regions, or let's say if you want to supply certain configs in case of different environments which you support, it was not easy, right? In that case, you can we started exploring the Helm package manager, which is well-known package manager, and it gave us a flexibility where you can supply your configs at the runtime. And let's say if I'm deploying in my development environment, and let's say if I'm deploying the same service in a production environment, and I have some certain different configurations, right? In that case, I can supply those configurations to Helm, and that will take care of my deployment. I am able to upgrade my Helm releases where it will roll out new changes of my services, and it was solving our problem on the public cloud, and we started adopting Helm Package Manager, and we are still using it for certain use cases. Now, let's say if you want to migrate, in that case, what all things you need to consider? We had to support the hybrid cloud where we did not have the access to a customer's environment. And since you do not have access to customer environment, you should be able to deploy your microservices consistently. It should be self-managed and self-recoverable. You should not have you will not have an access to intervene and change things, and your service should be able to scale down and scale up. Now, we try to see how whether Helm will fit in our this requirements or not. But since Helm is only a package manager and it does not orchestrate the container workload, it gave us enough flexibility, but it did not give us that much flexibility that with Helm we would be able to run our workload in customers environment. Because once you have created the Helm release, if something goes wrong and let's say some of the resources are removed or due to some environment issue, if uh, uh, you face some issue, in that case, since there is no orchestrator on top of releases, those resources are gone and nobody will be able to recover them, right? And once you create a Helm release, it starts creating if you are on Helm 2, it starts creating the config maps for each release. If you are on Helm 3, start creating the service secrets on particular namespace from where you are running the Helm, and that would fill up all your requirements. Let's say if you are running with the thousands of uh, Helm releases, we have seen that it can impact severely when you are running simply a kubectl get secret, right? So that was not a good enough option. So we started looking at the other options. where the operator is very well known framework, and now everybody is started exploring and adopting it. So it's nothing but uh, application controller where you can define your own custom logic, where you can extend the APIs of Kubernetes. You can create your own custom resource and you can write your own logic, like how your custom resource should come up. So let's say if I want to deploy an application, I can write my own logic. I can decide, okay, this particular service should come up first, or this particular service should come later, and all those things, right? I can control the flow. Uh, and it watches for that particular custom resource, and it reconciles and it tries to achieve the state which I have defined in my CR. Now, if I look at the requirements which I already had, so we evaluated against that. So we are able to like operator offers that it can consistently deploy things. I can control my own flow, and it is self-manageable. It can recover, and apart from that, it offers many other things like backup and restore, as well as upgrade and rollback. And I can build my own logic to achieve that. So now we have uh, decided like, okay, operator is the way to go. Uh, what all tools are available in market, like where you can use, which you can use to build your operator, right? So if you have Googled against operator, you would see like operator SDK is very well known, and it is available everywhere in search, and it is well built framework. It already gives you a ready boilerplate where you don't have to write too much logic, too much code, and it still gives you a support to write your code in multiple languages, and you can build your operator test locally, and you can package that also. But there are other options available, and with the operator SDK itself, you have Helm chart, Go, and Ansible, which are the languages supported. So we started evaluating like what all, like basically which tool we should lean towards. So we started looking at the Helm chart itself, where we already worked on Helm chart. We are proficient, and we have, it's not an uncharted territory for us, and we have already been working on it. So we thought, why not Helm, and let's try to see if we can achieve the same thing with Helm or not. Since it's an offered by operator SDK, you have a ready boilerplate, and Helm code is easy to manage and easy to write, but it has its own limitation where, let's say if I want to control the flow of my deployment, it is a bit difficult to do in Helm, and that was not fitting in our requirements. So we started looking at the other option where you can also build your operator in Java and Python. Uh, and as a team, we are actually proficient in Java and Python, and it is vastly used everywhere. And it is a very common language. But the problem with adopting those languages, there is no boilerplate available. And let's say if you even think of building your operator in that, thinking, okay, that's fine, I can manage and I can write my code. But let's say if you have any issues, you are on your own and there are no community support available, right? And you end up writing a lot of code which you have to maintain on your own, and there is no support available, so it would be very difficult to maintain that in your production kind of environment. So we started looking at the Go, which is very well known and being adopted by a lot of developers, and it is native to Kubernetes. So let's say if you are Kubernetes itself is built on this, and if you want to write any advanced operator logic, then you have an support in Go to do that. It already has a very rich community. So it provides you most of the features which you want. But it was not fitting in our requirements, where we wanted something like a Helm, where we can define certain templates, and we wanted a declarative way of doing things instead of writing very lengthy code. So we started looking at the other options, where Ansible was kind of a fit for us, because it gives you a Jinja templating which is a lot closer to Helm, and you can define the logic in your Jinja 2 scripts to start the basically deploy any kind of Kubernetes resource. And also you can, with Ansible roles and tasks, you can define declaratively like what all services should come up first and what all should wait for other service to come up. So all those kind of logic you can write in a declarative form in Ansible. And since it is available by Operator SDK, you have a ready boilerplate available. And since it's an open source tooling, you get a rich community support. Let's say if you are stuck anywhere. The And we also looked at the different side of the Ansible, where we also evaluated, let's say, what are the cons of the Ansible. So we figured out that Ansible is a Python package only. So let's say if we want to build our operator, and if something goes wrong with the dependency management, then we have to figure out those things on our own, and we have to maintain that. And compared to Go, we found that the operator logs are a bit clumsy in Ansible, and it is little difficult compared to Go to debug the things. So once we evaluated, okay, we want to go with the Ansible. We also thought, let's say if we want to achieve what kind of maturity we can achieve with the Ansible. So we also evaluated it against the operator maturity model, where Ansible and Go can pretty much achieve almost the autopilot kind of operator maturity, where you get all kind of you can support all kind of things, where if you want to install, upgrade, do a backup recovery, monitoring. So all those things are available, and you can achieve all those things using the Ansible framework. So once we decided like, okay, this is the way to go. So we thought, okay, with the plain good old Kubernetes, is there anything, we already found that, okay, operator can manage the life cycle of our application, but is there anything available which can manage the life cycle of operator? Where it can support the consistent install, upgrade, rollback, and all those things. So we started looking at the OpenShift Lifecycle Manager, which actually manages the life cycle of your operator, where you can, it gives you an option where you can roll out your operator code frequently, and user can subscribe to whatever channel they want. So it gives you an option where which has a concept called channel, where if you are rolling out your operator code very frequently, then you can create an alpha channel and roll out your operator code frequently in alpha channel. And whoever is interested in having the latest code, they can actually subscribe to that particular channel. Whereas some customers who actually want always the stable code, they can subscribe to a stable channel, and they can switch it over whenever they want to do it, right? Now with Operator Lifecycle Manager, you get a lot of other things, where You can create the catalog source. With that, your operator will show up in your OpenShift console as an in Operator Hub, and user can directly subscribe from console itself if they do not want to uh, basically do through OCCLI or kubectl CLI. Once, let's say, as a user, if I have subscribed to a particular channel, in that case, it will create an install plan. And what install plan will make sure is it will install all the required resources for the operator to come up. So it will create service account, cluster role binding, and all those things along with the CRD. And my operator, once my operator deployment is ready, a user can start creating the CR. And once they create a CR, operator will start reconciling it and it will deploy my application. So all this thing can be done through this. And let's say at any point of time, customer wants to roll back to an old code, they just have to change the cluster service version, where the operator lifecycle manager maintains multiple versions of cluster service version, where the if I, let's say if I am on 1.0.1 and I want to roll back to 1.0.0, I can easily roll back, which will roll back my operator deployment. And let's say if I want to upgrade, I can go to 1.0.2, which will get the latest operator deployment and it will update my deployed applications. So with operator lifecycle manager, we were able to solve most of the operator lifecycle uh, scenario supports, where I'm able to consistently install, or I can do upgrade, rollback, backup, and all those things. Now, once we have done this and build this operator, we were able to achieve what all we had in our mind. Now, once we had, now we want to share some of the best practices and learnings we had along the way with the experience of our building operators for almost 6 months, where we had come up with the two categories, where one for operator and one for operator managed resources. So most of the thing is like uh, there are two options available, where you can create the uh, operator namespace scope or the cluster scope. Let's say if you create a operator namespace scope, in that case, your operator deployment and your application, basically your CR and the operator manage resources are in same namespace. In that case, let's say if you want to upgrade, uh, that is a bit difficult to achieve, and you do not get any isolation. Whereas, let's say if you create an cluster scope operator, in that case, you have the upgrade decoupled, where you can upgrade your operator uh, based on the requirement, and you can have a different logic where you want to upgrade the CR itself. And you also get an namespace isolation. So something goes wrong with the particular namespace, it does not hamper your workload. And let's say if you are in customer environment, you do not get the access to a whole cluster. In that case, you can come up with the watch namespace logic, where you can define the environment variable in your operator deployment, which can take the list of namespaces and it can only watch for those namespaces. That way you can actually restrict the scope of your operator, where it will not allow the user to create the CR or your application in any namespace. Instead of that, it will only watch for certain namespaces and will be able to create the CRs and your deploy your application in certain namespace. Now for the operator role best practices. So suppose if I take an example where my app, as part of my operator logic, I want to deploy job deployment, and I want to create a service. Basically, I want to deploy my service and want to actually create a job. In that case, I do not have to define all the resources which are available. So if you look at on the left hand side, I don't require stateful set, I don't need daemon set, I don't need cron jobs. So why do I define those resources? So this is one of the portals where everybody makes a mistake. So you need to be very mindful of that, where you define only the API groups which you are actually using as part of your operator logic, and only define those resources and verbs for your operator logic. Uh, the other important thing is you need to have a streamlined security context where you drop all the security Linux privileges if you are not using any for your operator deployment, because your operator deployment is very important because it is responsible for spinning up the Kubernetes resources on your cluster, and you need to be mindful of that when you are on customer's environment and you do not get a very wide privilege compared to your own environment. So you need to run your operator deployment with arbitrary user where it does not gain any extra privileges, and it should be able to run with very minimum privileges. So one of the best practices for the operator manage resources, like uh, do not try to use a daemon set or cron jobs. The reason behind using that is if you are in customer's environment, you might not get the whole cluster access where you won't be able to create a pods on all the nodes. Uh, Rather, you will get only some of the tainted nodes or labeled nodes, which will be available for you to start your workload, and that should not hamper the existing workload. One of the problem the daemon set and cron job can create is it can overload the Kubernetes APIs if you are creating a lot of pods very frequently, and if you do not have access to all the nodes, in that case daemon stack will not work. So that is one of the things which you need to consider before using those resources. The other thing is your operator deployment is one which is responsible for spinning up the different resources, whereas your application deployments or pods do not require any such access because they are not spinning up any resources. So you should try to run your application without any RBACs, where it does not gain any privileges, uh, and won't be able to start or won't be able to look at any Kubernetes event or logs, or won't be able to start any resources. That should be the best way you can configure your operator manage resources. Apart from that, one good practice is where in your operator CRD itself, you need to give an option where, let's say, if customer wants to run the workload on certain nodes, in that case, they should have an option to define the affinity rules where they can uh, basically define where the workload should run. If customer has already defined set of nodes where your workload should run, then they can label those nodes, and if you have an option in your CR where you take the affinity rules then that gives an customer an option that your application workload run can run on certain set of nodes, and the whole other cluster can be used for customer's own workload, and your workload does not hamper the customer's workload. So these were the some of the best practices we thought that one should consider when building the operators. So these are the some of the references you can look at it if you want to go in detail of operator management lifecycle or operator SDK. And if you consider building the operator with Ansible operator, you can look at this. Thank you. I'm open for Q&A. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and we can discuss on it.